Hey everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with a special update on the crisis caused by the assassination attempt of President Trump, an attempt which he survived, thankfully. And Judicial Watch, as I've been saying, has already initiated a comprehensive investigation into the outrageous failure of the Secret Service to protect President Trump and the other fine Americans who were there that day. One man was murdered, two others severely injured, and of course everyone who was there that day was also victimized. And the Biden Secret Service has been out of control for several years. It predates Biden. It goes back years in terms of the Secret Service being corrupted and politicized. We've seen most recently that the Secret Service has been abused by Biden, so the morale is low. Imagine being attacked by Biden's dog 25 times agency-wide, what that does for morale. Nothing from the leadership to protect the agents on the front lines from these dog attacks by Biden. Biden refusing to provide, in a vicious, vindictive way, Secret Service protection for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The news today is that the Biden administration, only after Trump was nearly killed, only after, frankly, Trump said that Kennedy deserves Secret Service protection, he said that today, did Mayorkas, the corrupt head of the Department of Homeland Security, finally, supposedly at the direction of Biden only, provide Secret Service protection to Kennedy. You know, Judicial Watch has been investigating the Secret Service for some time because we know it's been corrupted. We know Secret Service agents are being abused and harmed. We exposed how Mayorkas specifically rejected Secret Service protection for Kennedy, despite all this evidence and intelligence that he faced threats. My gosh, his uncle was murdered, assassinated, John F. Kennedy. His father murdered, assassinated, and he runs for president, and there'd be even a question about providing him Secret Service protection? And of course, the scandal of the collapse in the security for President Trump deserves thorough investigation and examination. And I don't know about you, but I don't trust, as I've been saying, any of these deep state agencies to investigate themselves. The FBI is going to get to the bottom of it? Huh. Who watches the watchers? Judicial Watch does. We've seen the videos coming out, more testimony from civilian witnesses that they saw the shooter on top of the roof, a short distance away from where President Trump was speaking. And he still wasn't taken out. Trump still wasn't protected. There was no lockdown. There was no emergency response. Frankly, it looks like if it weren't for the Trump supporters taking action to call attention to this guy who was shot dead by either Secret Service or local police snipers. I don't know which one did it. I know we're being told the Secret Service did it, but I don't know. I don't trust anything that's coming out these days. But obviously taken out by law enforcement. I'm thinking if the locals, if the rally goers hadn't kind of highlighted, hey, there's something going on up here, who's that guy? I think he might have been able just to shoot the president without having to worry about any of this. I mean, reportedly, there was a local police officer who initially tried to confront him, failed to stop him. I'm not quite sure the details there. It's a little bit sketchy. And obviously, the attack on Trump failed, I think in part because they were distracted. He was distracted by Trump rally-goers and the attention that was brought to him. They were yelling. And of course, the Secret Service is under criticism because they had some female agents around Trump who seemed to be really not in the position to protect him in the way that Americans would expect. It's not to say they didn't operate bravely. It's not to say they didn't try to do their jobs as well as they could. But I've met Trump. He's a big guy. I'm about 6 feet. He's a little bit taller than I am. And the idea that there would be someone surrounding him, because in the end, what happened is, as you saw, the agents swarmed and protected him with their bodies. And the challenge is that you don't want to basically have him visible in a way in a situation like that that would allow him to be shot. And a shorter female agent, or frankly a shorter male agent, is not in a position to provide that type of coverage. It's simple. So there's this bigger issue of the DEI and the diversity initiatives. Are they placing the life of the protectees at risk and increasing the likelihood of an attack because they don't have agents appropriate for the task? So those are just some of the questions. Now, I can assure you that Judicial Watch isn't going to wait for Congress, isn't going to wait for this independent review by Joe Biden, isn't going to wait for an FBI investigation to do its work. We've already launched numerous Freedom of Information Act requests at the federal, state, and local level to get information about this attack, to get the full truth to you, the American people. So it was a miracle Trump lived. The Secret Service has a $3 billion budget. Now, obviously, not all of that goes to protection. But it shows you the resources the Secret Service has, practically speaking, are infinite. No excuse. No excuse. And we're not going to get full accountability with the traditional big government, deep state way of investigating, exonerating, burying the details of who ultimately is responsible and what went wrong. So I was horrified. I was upset by the shooting, like probably all of you are. But I'm also angry because it shouldn't have happened. There's no excuse for it happening. And I don't trust the government and the Congress that knew or should have known that the Secret Service was a mess to again investigate what everyone knows to be the case. It's poorly run, like virtually every other federal agency. And they'll highlight it and make a few revelations, but hiding the core truths, and this is why we do the work. I mean, we exposed, you remember this Obama chef death issue. Without getting into too much of the detail, I mean, one of the things that struck me was that the Secret Service tried to respond in an emergency fashion to the poor guy drowning in the pond next to Obama's luxury compound, and both boats that the Secret Service supposedly had for emergency operations, neither of them worked. And they had to rely on the groundskeeper to go out there and search for them, or at least his boat. I don't know if Trump can feasibly, technically, legally, or practically do this, but if I were him, I'd look into supplementing the Secret Service protection with private protection. What do you think? So we're going to hear more revelations about the shooter, more revelations about what went wrong, how it is he got any shots off, let alone more than one. I just can't believe it. It's truly a miracle Trump is alive. Despite the Secret Service collapse around him. Utter collapse. I mean, I visited the White House when Trump was in office. I wasn't all that thrilled by the Secret Service protection then. And I can't imagine it's even better I can't imagine it's much better for Biden. I mean, it's not a political issue. I just don't I don't think the Secret Service does the job or is able to do the job we expect them to do. And we can get into the reasons, but it's an issue that concerns me in terms of all of their protectees. So the miracle is, as we kind of highlight in the title of this update, the miracle of Trump's survival is just, like I said, a miracle. We should all be thanking and praising God in addition to praying for the other victims. Another miracle today, in some ways, was the dismissal, the complete dismissal, the destruction, the decimation, the takedown of Jack Smith's sham documents case against President Trump in Florida. Judge Aileen Cannon, dismissed completely the charges against Trump and the other defendants there. Why? Because Jack Smith is an unconstitutional appointed prosecutor. Unconstitutionally appointed prosecutor. He's rogue. He had no power to do what he did under the Constitution. Something that yours truly and Judicial Watch has been saying for years with these rogue special counsels. As we said in the statement for Trump, responding to this massive victory for Trump and the Constitution and the rule of law, this case should never have been brought. There were multiple reasons to dismiss these charges, in my view. But this is a pretty simple reason. Essentially, the Constitution requires that someone who's exercising the awesome and dangerous power that a prosecutor like Jack Smith has needs to be appointed under the constitutional processes requiring that officers of the government be appointed properly, approved by Congress, funded properly by Congress. You just can't slide in your own private little special counsel from outside the government to do your dirty work, which is what they did with Mueller and it's what they did with Jack Smith. As Cannon highlighted, you have U.S. attorneys that could be slid into a special counsel position, other government attorneys who might be able to do these types of prosecutions under the proper supervision of properly confirmed individuals in the Justice Department or elsewhere in the government. But Jack Smith is a contract lawyer they brought in. What a victory for Trump. What a victory for the Constitution. What a victory for the rule of law. And I want to read just briefly what Judge Cannon, who has been viciously attacked for daring to confront the abuses of the Justice Department and for, even worse, as far as the left is concerned, giving Trump a fair hearing, ensuring that his rights are protected. Let me get the quote here. Give me a second for it to pull up. Of course, everything's slow. I've been a little bit too busy to see the less reaction, but I'm sure it's, oh, Judge Cannon is a Trump appointee. How terrible. What's terrible is that these special counsels have been allowed to run amok for years. This is her key, well, one of her key statements in her opinion. The bottom line is this: the Appointments Clause is a critical constitutional restriction stemming from the separation of powers, and it gives the Congress a considered role in determining the propriety of vesting appointment power for inferior officers. The special counsel's position effectively usurps that important legislative authority, transferring it to a head of department, which is Garland in this case, and in the process threatening the structural liberty inherent in the separation of powers. So this is an issue about how we're going to govern ourselves and whether the Constitution is going to govern or we're going to have rule by men like Garland. If the political branches wish to grant the Attorney General power to appoint Special Counsel Smith to investigate and prosecute this action with the full powers of a United States Attorney, there's a valid means by which to do so. He can be appointed and confirmed through the default method prescribed in the Appointments Clause, as Congress has directed for United States attorneys throughout American history, which means he has to be confirmed by the Senate. Or Congress can authorize his appointment through enactment of positive statutory law consistent with the Appointments Clause, neither of which has happened. So now the case against Trump, at least for now, is dead in Miami. So it's a big victory for the rule of law, a big victory for the U.S. Constitution. This case should never have been brought. You know, I've seen these abuses up front, up close. I was harassed by Jack Smith's special counsel operation. Judicial Watch was harassed by Jack Smith's special counsel operation. So we know there are abusers over there. And as I say in our release, Judicial Watch has long called out the unconstitutional special counsels and their attendant abuses of Trump and other innocent political targets. And so what does this mean? It means the case in Florida against Trump for now is dead. Now, I'm sure the anti-Trump Justice Department will desperately try to appeal this to the 11th Circuit, which is the Court of Appeals overseeing Judge Cannon, and maybe even to the Supreme Court. In the meantime, these other Supreme Court decisions on immunity, the Fisher case that knocks out, it looks like, part of the obstruction sham charges against Trump up here in Washington, D.C. I think the cases should be dismissed as well, almost out of hand. But the judge up here is a notorious anti-Trump activist, so I don't trust that she'll do the right thing here, but maybe she will. But certainly this is going to raise core issues about the ability of Jack Smith to lawfully bring any of this. What he did now in Florida, according to a federal court judge, is a nullity. I call it the empty set. The charges, there's nothing there. And Jack Smith abused power, or Garland allowed the abuse of power by having Jack Smith come in. And of course, Judicial Watch will continue to investigate and litigate these issues. We have lawsuits to try to get the names of Jack Smith's top people. He doesn't want to tell us who's helping him try to jail Trump. Numerous other lawsuits we have into these abuses targeting Trump. So they can attack us, they can target us, but we're not going to back down. Judicial Watch is going to stand strong. I've been saying that these special counsels are unconstitutional since Mueller came in. And so we've been vindicated. So great news. Great news for Trump. Another vindication and another judicial decision confirming he was abused. His civil rights were abused by unlawful exercises of power by the Biden regime. And I guess the other big news is that President Trump has designated Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican from Ohio, to be his vice presidential running mate. So congratulations to J.D. Vance. I wasn't sure who Trump was going to pick. I don't know much about J.D. Vance than from what I read in the newspaper and what I've seen publicly about what he's been saying, and I generally know about his background. The good news is I'm not aware of any corruption issues, because sometimes Republicans have corruption issues too. You got to admit, right? So he seems to have a clean bill of health in that regard. And in the meantime, obviously, what I would recommend to him, or the advice I would give him, is be prepared for the deluge. Because even if there aren't any corruption issues, as we've seen with Trump, they will make them up and try to put you in jail and worse for them. So he should be prepared for significant pushback. He's a young man. He's 39, right? He's 39. Am I right, guys?
Yes.
He's 39, making me feel like an old man. So he's a big threat to the left, because obviously if Trump wins the presidency as vice president, he's well positioned to run again and certainly provide leadership as the next generation rises in the political fights for the control of government here in Washington, D.C. So they have an interest in, if not jailing him, because that's the way they operate, the left does, but certainly wounding him as he begins this next phase of his political career. So congratulations to J.D. Vance. Right now, Biden continues to cling to the presidency. I think this shooting of President Trump further highlights the need to have someone who isn't cognitively disabled in the Oval Office. There's nothing he said, there's no behavior he's exhibited over the last few days, speeches, statements, that makes me think he's any better than he was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or when he came into the presidency, quite frankly. So the Biden crisis continues, and the Biden crisis and kind of is dovetailed dangerously with the crisis related to President Trump's the attempted assassination of President Trump. Because who's running the store? Who's running the store? So no matter what happens, Judicial Watch will continue to be your watchdog here in Washington, D.C. No one else has the capacity, the expertise, the wherewithal, the courage, the perseverance, the ability to do the heavy lifting on all these issues you care about in terms of investigating them, exposing what's really going on, and as importantly, telling the people the truth about what's really going on than your Judicial Watch. So stay tuned. Come back here often for more updates, and I'll see you here next, certainly on the weekly update at the end of the week. Thank you. God bless. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.